When I really slow down and listen to the thought that shows up for me when I feel behind, it's not actually the words "I'm behind" that I hear first. It's something different. It's the sentence "I'm struggling." I go back to that one a lot. That's the one I keep remembering. And when I don't rush past it or try to ignore it or tell myself I shouldn't think it, that thought doesn't feel like comparison or jealousy or wishing my life looked different than someone else's. It feels like drowning, not dramatic, splashing drowning, not the kind you see in movies where they're screaming and splashing and everyone knows there's an emergency. It's different than that. It's the kind of drowning where you're standing in your own life doing what needs to be done, answering texts, making dinner, paying bills, going to work, showing up for the people you love. And from the outside, everything looks fine. But inside, all your energy is going towards staying afloat and taking the next breath. When I was 49, that's how I felt. That feeling took hold. That's all I said. And when I woke up in the morning and when I went to bed, it started as a regular day. And my husband came home from work and it was dark. It was night. I was already in bed. I remember hearing the door, the sound of his boots, the familiar noises that usually meant nothing more than the day was over, and he was home. This time he came in and it felt different. He didn't say much. He walked into the bedroom and sat on the side of the bed. The room was dark because it was nighttime and I was in bed. He was quiet. It was too quiet. I noticed the silence before I noticed anything else because silence has weight when you don't know what's coming. I asked him what was wrong. There was a long silence, the kind that stretches and makes your body tense before your mind catches up, the kind that tells you something has already changed, even before the words are said. And then he said it. I want a divorce. I don't remember what I said next. I don't remember the details of the conversation after that sentence because once those words landed, my body reacted faster. My body reacted faster than my thoughts could organize themselves. It felt like the air left the room. I was a stay-at-home mom of 6 kids at the time, and the panic that hit me wasn't emotional first. It was sadness, or it wasn't sadness or anger or grief. It was practical and immediate, like a switch flipped in my brain and everything narrowed down to this one urgent question. How do we survive this? The thoughts came fast and they collided with each other. And I thought, I have no skills. I have no education. I have no way to support myself or my children. How will I take care of my kids? And what am I going to do now? There was no space to think about what I wanted or who I might become or how this could turn into something meaningful one day. There was no time for reflection or imagining a future beyond the next step. It wasn't, how do I rebuild my life? It was, how do I keep from drowning? That's when the feeling of being behind stopped being a thought and became something that lived in my body. When people talk about feeling behind, it often sounds like comparison, like you're watching other people move ahead while you stand still. Or you're scrolling through social media and thinking, everyone else figured it out faster than me. But for me, behind didn't feel like that. It felt physical. It felt like drowning, like I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, like something heavy was pressing down on it. And breathing felt shallow and deliberate, the kind where you're aware of your every inhale because it feels like work. Sleep wasn't restorative. Even when I slept, my body was alert, like I was bracing for something else to go wrong. It was rough. I wasn't thinking about success or fulfillment or purpose. I wasn't thinking about how to get ahead. I was thinking about surviving, about staying afloat. I'm behind didn't mean I wanted more. It meant I didn't know how to stand on my own feet anymore. And that difference matters. At the time, feeling behind meant very specific, very real things. It meant wondering how I would start at an entry-level job at almost 50 years old. Knowing I would be competing with people who had decades ahead of them and experience I would never have. It meant imagining myself sitting across from someone half my age in an interview and trying to explain why they should hire me when I didn't even believe it myself yet. It meant believing it was too late to go back to school, too late to get educated, too late to start something new. It meant telling myself that even if I tried, I wouldn't know what to study or where it would lead or whether it would be worth my time and energy or whether it would be worth the time and energy it would take. Those were not abstract worries. They were heavy and they followed me in every decision I made. And none of them were about ambition or dreams or wanting more out of my life. They were about surviving. When you're in survival mode, your world gets very, very small, very, very fast. That's why the thought I'm struggling feels so accurate to me, because struggling doesn't feel like being behind in a race where everyone else is sprinting and you just need to run faster. It feels like water in your lungs. It feels like effort just to stay where you are. Like every bit of energy is going toward not going under. When you're drowning, you're not making plans or you're setting goals or thinking about the future. You're reaching for the next breath. That's it. Looking back now, I can see clearly that at the time I couldn't put it in. You could see that clearly at the time I couldn't put that into words. All I knew was that I felt underwater in my own life, and I didn't know how to explain that to anyone else. Going back to school didn't feel brave or empowering or like some bold reinvention of my life, of myself. It felt lonely. My classes were online, which meant there was no campus to walk onto, no room to sit in, no one around me who looked like they were also trying to figure things out. It was just me, my computer, and the quiet pressure of wondering whether I could actually do this. I remember sitting at my desk, staring at the screen, noticing how quiet the house felt, and thinking, what am I even doing? Without faces to read or conversations before class or someone sitting next to me asking the same questions, all the doubts stayed inside of my head. I told myself I was too old to be starting over. I told myself I was too old to be starting something new like this, that I wasn't smart enough, that I had missed my chance and was now trying to make up for lost time in a way that wouldn't work. There was no immediate feedback. No sense of whether I belonged or didn't belong, just assignments, deadlines, and silence. And in that silence, the doubts got louder. I didn't know what I would major in. I didn't know how any of this would turn into a job. I didn't know if I was wasting my time. I didn't feel like I had. I didn't know if I was wasting time. I didn't feel like I had. The thought that pushed me forward wasn't hopeful or inspiring. It was simple and almost flat. If I'm going to take care of myself, I just have to keep going. At the time, that felt like the only way forward. Later, I could see there were other paths and other options, but when you're drowning, you don't see the whole ocean. You don't see the whole ocean. You see what's right in front of you, and you reach for it. Becoming a coach didn't magically erase the feeling of behind, and it didn't suddenly make everything filled. What it did change was my relationship with the thought. Instead of hearing, I'm behind, what I started to notice was the thought, I'm struggling. And instead of arguing with it or trying to push past it, I started listening to it. Now when that thought shows up, because it still does, I don't tell myself to be grateful or remind myself of everything that's going well or try to fix it immediately. I ask a different question. Am I drowning right now? Am I safe right now? Or am I just uncomfortable? Am I safe in this moment? Because those experiences feel very different in the body. Even though they can sound like the same words, drowning feels urgent and consuming. Discomfort feels loud and unsettling, but it still leaves room, but it's the others one need. Over the years, I've noticed how many women in midlife say the words, I feel behind, when what they're actually describing is panic. Panic about money, and whether there will be enough, panic about health and whether their body will hold up, panic about time and whether they've missed their opportunity, panic about not having it all figured out by now. It isn't about comparison, it's about survival mode. And survival mode doesn't respond well to pressure or advice or being told to think differently. It responds to space, to slowing down enough to breathe again, to feeling safe enough to tell the truth about what's actually happening inside. The thought it's too late for me still shows up for me sometimes, especially that when things feel uncertain or heavy. Recently, it's been louder. And when it does show up, something else meets it now, something that steadies me instead of scaring me. Everyone dies too, even young people die. That thought doesn't feel dark to me, it feels grounding. Because if the fact that life ends someday were a reason to stop living now, none of us would do anything at all. You don't quit just because life is fragile. We keep going anyway. Not to prove something, not to accomplish everything on some invisible list, but simply because we get to be here and alive. We get to enjoy this moment exactly as it is. Midlife has taught me that the ideas of behind and ahead start to fall apart. When you're honest about what you're feeling. What matters more is this question: am I holding my breath in this part of my life, or am I letting myself breathe again? Because when you can breathe, you can see options you couldn't see before. When you can breathe, you can make choices instead of reacting. And when you can breathe, you're no longer drowning. Even if nothing about your circumstances has changed. Even if nothing about your circumstances has changed yet. If you're listening to this and the thought, I'm struggling, lives in your body like panic, I want to say this clearly, and you're not lazy. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not failing. You might be tired. You might be scared. And you might feel like you're underwater right now. And that deserves some honesty, but not some shame. One of the hardest parts of midlife for me, is realizing that struggling doesn't always mean something is wrong with me or my life. Sometimes it means something is changing. And the way I've been holding myself together no longer fits. Instead of saying I'm behind, maybe truer sentences is simply, I'm trying to figure out how to breathe again. I remind myself often that nobody's tomorrow is promised. Not at 20, not at 40, not at 60. And that doesn't make me rush or panic. It makes me stop quitting on myself when things feel slow or hard or confusing, especially when the water feels high. After sitting with all of this, here's what I know. Feeling behind isn't often panic wearing a different name. I'm struggling can be another way of saying, I need some air. I need some oxygen. And midlife isn't about catching up. It's about coming back to yourself, one breath, one stroke at a time. If you recognize that drowning feeling in your own life, book a call with me. There's a link down below. Let's see if I can't help you. I've learned a lot of things over the last few years. You'll find the information in the show notes. The Believe in You call is a great place to start putting what's happening inside of you, talking about what's happening inside of you. Not to solve everything or rush towards answers, but simply to hear it out loud. You'll find the information in the show notes.